Frank?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'm going to call the roll.
Yes, sir.
Daniel Harper.
Present.
Michelle Lopez.
Present.
Clara Rodriguez.
Present.
David Salazar.
David's there.
He's
David?
present.
I'm here.
Okay. David, and then Brad Kaufman.
We don't see him.
No Brad.
No Brad. Okay. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. So next on the agenda is citizen comment period. It's 6:05 p.m. and we'll open citizen comment. Been advised that we don't have
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hendricks said he had not received any emails.
Yes, sir. Yep. So at 6:05 p.m., I say we close the citizen comment period. And I believe next on our planned agenda, we're going to have a presentation from Mr. Erlob, who is our longtime accountant, to discuss the financials of the Kyle Housing Authority. Mr. Erlob, I turn it over to you.
Okay. So thank you guys for inviting me here. I have to admit that I'm not back at my office, so I'm a little bit limited here. So I got stuck on an audit and was hoping to get back earlier, but did not. So we do have the financial statements as of October 31st that hopefully everybody is looking at. So with that being said, we're going to kind of go through these financials a little bit. We want you to ask questions. We did receive the November financial information yesterday, but not enough time to get it processed up to have November. So we're sitting with October financials to look at here. So let's take a look here at the balance sheet. Hopefully everybody's at. And what you're going to notice is we do have two programs, two different projects. And the point being here that these two projects are funded separately, one by HUD and one by rural development. And with that understanding here, it's very difficult. And what we have to understand is you cannot share cost. I can't transfer money and give it from one to the other. These are like two different investors. And so that's kind of some of the issues we're going to look at here. And unfortunately, one of the investors, being HUD, Public Housing in low rent, they fund their program more than rural development does. So that's always going to be our issue. So let's take a look at some of the issues here, and you'll spot them right off the bat here. Cash, unrestricted. So you notice in public housing, we have a $27,000 bank account. But when you look at the rural development side, they are in the hole $6,700. Right, $6,600. And so going your way down, you notice there are some restricted funds here, but we cannot use those funds. So we have that $25,000 restricted for mod and development. That's your maintenance reserve. But unfortunately, RD will not let you use those funds to help pay for some operating costs. So you can see that unfortunately, one of your programs is okay, get some money in the bank, but one of them is not here. Now, one of the issues, if you work your way down about halfway, you always look about tenant accounts receivable. And you notice in public housing, it's $342. So that one's not very big. But when we look at RD, we got $7,400 in tenant AR. And if we had that collected, you could see that would take us back into the black on the bank account side. So, but sometimes attendance and damages and so forth, we have these issues that, we just can't collect. So it is what it is on that. Really, you see the property and the equipment here. I'm not too worried about it, going into that, because it's not going to change any decision we make from the building cost being $600,000 or $1 million on public housing here. Now, the one thing I do want everyone to understand here is if we go down to the next page, you do see the current liabilities here. Now, under the accounting, we do not know how much unpaid bills there are as of October 31st, okay? And so Frank will have those bills, because I'm assuming that there's going to be some invoices that we're trying to push off to get it paid when we get the next month's worth of money under the Rural Development Project. So that number is not on these financials as far as a payable. What you do notice is that the RD program owes $75,000 back to the HUD program. And that's what HUD is upset with, is that the HUD funds were being spent on the rural development side, or that we have not paid them back for the public housing. And HUD's basically saying, how are we going to get our money back into this project from the RD side? And if you look back on the page before, under the current assets on the last line, you see low rent says, yeah, RD owes us that $75,000 back. If you look at that, you look at the bank account, we're in the hole $6,600. We owe $75,000 back to low rent. That's where this RD project is financially. And so that's part of our problem here. What we're looking at here is there's no easy way to say, how can we pay this money back? We can't raise the rent. The profit margins are going to be very, very small. And that's kind of what HUD is wanting to see here. But when you pay for admin costs, when you pay for certain invoices, office supplies, telephone costs, we still expect both programs to pay their part. And so under the cost allocation model, it's almost like we have two roommates, and each roommate has to pay their part. So I have to charge that part no matter what. They have to be charged. We can't charge it all the low rent just because they have the money, right? So it has to be split between them. So looking at the financial statements here, I'm going to skip down, if you would, over to, because some of these income statements are what we call consolidated, and I really want to look at the program financial statements here. So I'm looking at one that says it's about 4 or 5 pages past the balance sheet, income statement dash operating fund. It's got 4 columns going across: the current month, the year to date, the budget, and the variance. And so this is for public housing. This shows what my day-to-day operations is bringing in and paying out. Now, what is happening now is we know that we're trying to cut costs. We're really trying to squeeze some of this out a little bit here. And so if you work your way down, you see total operating revenues. Year to date, we brought in $35,000 of revenue coming in. The operating expenses, if you go down past the admin, utilities, maintenance, you see we spent $35,900. So we're showing a $600 net loss for the public housing side. Now, we are allowed to transfer some money in from capital fund. It's a separate grant. The grant has been earmarked for capital improvements on public housing, but HUD provides us the option that we can transfer some of that into our low rent budget. And you can see that's what we did, $10,933. And so bottom line, net income loss, $10,316 is what public housing is made for a profit. So really from the public housing side, you're looking at this and saying it breaks even. Now, if we go down a couple pages, you're going to notice there's a couple of items. The COVID funds, we do have some CARES Act funding. Unfortunately, not very much. But I want to go down to the profit and loss statement that says income statement dash S8 new construction program, which is your RD program. It's, again, 4 columns going across, current month, year to date, but budget and variance. But it does say income statement S8.
All right.
Now,
Give me a second. I'm still trying to track it down. It doesn't.
okay, okay.
Numbers are number 1 for some reason.
Yeah, it's
AMP1. So is it past AMP1?
it should be, yes.
Would it help me to share screen with this so that you could see?
Yeah.
Let me.
If you have it, I won't be able to see it, but you can go ahead.
Yeah.
If you found it.
I have it. But for some reason it's not popping up. It's not showing.
You said it was the consolidated one?
So,
No, it's close to the very bottom.
Dan, it's not letting me, but if you will look in the Adobe, I believe he is on page 16 of 16.
It's pretty close to the end.
And so it's titled income statement dash S8 NC program.
Yep.
Find it.
I'm gonna track it down while Mr. Erlob talks. I won't slow anybody down.
Okay. And so what we're looking at here is, and again, the good thing is now what we've done is we can actually show a profit here, and it does have a profit of $3,800. Now, there's a couple things here. So as we said, one, I don't know how much unpaid invoices there are related to this project, and that would have to be a question for Frank on that. How much is out there? Because when I go up, when you were looking at some of this, we're starting to see that, like maintenance materials, we've only spent $109 during the year. So we're really trying to keep it down here. You can see the note payment, $17,408 for the year to date. And so that's the principal and the interest expense. And I know you're going to say, well, hey, Ron, proper accounting was supposed to have the interest expense. But I'm really wanting you to see more what is the total payments coming in versus going out. And so we've been able to tie a profit here so far, year to date. But we know we're going to get hit with some additional cost here. I don't know what that number is going to be. But unfortunately, you can see that even with this profit, we are still $6,000 in the hole on the bank account, and we still owe $75,000 back to public housing.
All right. So
questions.
Ron, at one of our last board meetings, we adopted a new split between the two. Is that reflected in these financials, or?
I think those will take effect, but that cost probably won't change your numbers by more than $500.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good.
Yeah, and that's always the problem here is we would like, even from the board perspective, we would like to be able to change the percentages, but we also have to be careful as a board. We just can't come up with the numbers, right? So I can't say, let's do an 80-20 split. We're breaking OMB requirements here. The allocation plan must be supported. And so we talked about units, we talked about this. It has to be supported somehow. And so, again, that's why I started out saying, all right, this is like two different investors, two different roommates, and we're just not allowed to transfer and share money between them.
Ron, this is Frank. The board at our last meeting agreed to a split of 45-55. 55 for Pete dressing. And it was an arbitrary number, and arbitrary in the sense that I believe you give us that amount or that rate back when I and Mr. Harper and Ms. Lopez had a conference call.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is right now that's not going to help the situation one way or another. That's not enough to help.
So if we did it by units, 30 in one complex and 21 in the other, we could use that basis.
We could, and I don't remember the units off the top of my head. 30 units is on the low rent side?
No, it's the opposite. 21 is for low rent and 30.
Yeah, then you definitely don't want to do that because that's going to hurt you even more.
Yeah.
I think what I understood when we decided this last time at the last meeting to make the split, that was for us budgeting and making sure that we were, as we received the income, making sure that the split was correct. But right now, the issue is the things that have happened up to this point, what we've accrued, that's going to have to be a separate way for us to decide and figure out how to remedy that. Moving forward, I think we definitely have a way of trying to ensure that this is happening. We're trying to make those adjustments, but it's the previous issues. Is that correct, Mr. Erlob?
Not necessarily here. I think the biggest problem that we're going to have here is, because I really don't think that was so much an issue, it is going to be very budget driven here. And, so I come in and say, we have got to keep administrative costs absolutely down to a minimum. That's the only way we can make it work. Anytime you put any additional admin cost on, you understand that RD has to pay half of it, basically, right? On the allocation method.
Right. And
there's nothing we can do about that. So if you go out and say, I want to buy a new computer for $1,000, great. RD's got to pay half of it. And so from that perspective, in the past, these payables and the accruals, and one of the big issues was that the low rent funding went into the RD account. And I don't know, Frank, has that ever been changed back now?
It has not been changed yet.
Yep. And then so what we would have to do is transfer the money and say, that's not my money. I need to give it over to the HUD side. But the money was never transferred and was spent on the RD side. And that's, and this is not something that's happened overnight within the year. This has been happening for years, that this program, has this problem. And quite honestly, most housing authorities with an RD program, unfortunately, are having these issues because RD simply doesn't fund their program. And there's nothing we can do about it. We just don't get enough money to make it work. And you can see that $17,000 note payment is really hard to try to come up with. And matter of fact, I think, we may be behind a month or two on those note payments. Is that correct, Frank?
Yes. I want to clarify one thing, Ron. I have been trying, when the money from HUD comes in to the operating account, which is the Pete Dressen account, I try to take it out and put it into the low rent side. Now, there's been a couple of instances where I wait too long with that. I don't go into the account daily. So there is some funds that R&D has that should go to low rent, but there hasn't been enough of a balance to do that. Otherwise, the R&D checks will start bouncing. It's not an excuse. It's an expectation.
And so that's the issue that we're having here, is saying that, unfortunately, we're not bringing in enough money from the RD side to pay for their bills. And like I said, you can see some of the note payments have not been made to RD. So we're a couple months behind on the RD side. So there's some things we just have to look out for, that we understand there could be some unpaid bills hanging out there a little bit. And then what Frank was saying is that this is very tough. I mean, what do I do? You want me to hire a plumber to fix the unit, but there's no money in RD to pay him. Do you want me to, what do you want to do?
True statement.
Well, and I just want to let the group know, for the record, it's 6:26, and Commissioner Brad Kaufman just joined us.
Sorry, I had it down at 6:30 for some reason.
We did it to trick you.
Yeah, I figured. You've already talked about all the important stuff.
No, we've just got Mr. Erlob's kind of just talking through the financials, and I think, Brad, you've got the packet.
Yes.
And so, I mean, my short recap is what because you're pretty spry on this stuff. Is we've been splitting costs 50-50, and that's not really what we should be doing. We should be splitting it proportional to units. At the last meeting we voted to do that, but then the other issue that we were discussing is, it's more on a cash side, I guess, is we have, and Mr. Erlob can explain it better, but we have a $75,000 IOU from one of the complexes to the other complex. And that's just basically discussing. So
that's it, basically. Yeah, and unfortunately, we cannot forgive it.
And that IOU's been there a while, right?
It's been growing over the past few years, but it has been there. But yes.
And okay. And what's the cash flow? What's the cash flow right now on peat dressing?
It's really hard to say here while we are showing a profit. I am a little bit worried that I don't know how much unpaid invoices might be on that as well. That has it. And Frank, I'm assuming there's some.
Yes, there's some, and most recently I've been having problem collecting from some of the tenants at Peak Dressing. They're going 2 and 3 months, and I'm sending them letters and telling them the late fees are accumulating, and I can't do anything because I can't evict anybody right now. But it's going to come soon that I have to spend money to have people move out. I don't know how else to take care of this.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Erlob, I mean, I don't want to cut you off, but I know you've got time, and we've got to try to get a few more things knocked out before the end of the day. So unless my fellow commissioners have any kind of additional questions for Mr. Erlob, I kind of suppose, we let him loose and let him, get back to, I mean, hopefully dinner's in his near future. So.
Yes, it is. It better be.
Well, Mr. Erlob, I really do appreciate you taking the time out. And I know it's late, and I know you're traveling to kind of walk us through, but it was helpful. And honestly, we should have thought about this a couple of years ago. So.
Well, if you have any questions or comments, please give me a call, and we can talk some more.
Yes, sir. We will.
Daniel, before we let him loose, I'm sorry I came in late.
Okay.
If I could bounce something off of you, and I don't really know, your other experience in PIH and HUD properties. Is it pretty extensive? Are you pretty versed in
yeah, we have about 300 housing authorities, and they vary. In Texas, we do work with Brownsville, Corpus Christi, San Antonio, and then we work up to the really small ones. So we have them in 26 states, and so yeah, we've been doing this for about 25 years.
Okay, and I figured, and I just didn't know, and so that's kind of preface to my questions I have, and you'll know the HUD lingo on it. So,
sure.
So from a rent increase, we've been managing off an OCAP, which is just automatic rent increases that occur year to year. Yeah, small percentage. You don't have to do anything but sign a piece of paper and return it. But I know there's a lot of conversations that have gone on, and everybody's trying to learn, and we've talked to some other people, and the concepts of mark-to-market budget-based rent increases and rent comparability studies. From your perspective, could you give some insight on those to the board on your dealings with them?
We can. So what we're trying to look at is a new financing option. And I think, we may end up having to try to come up with a new financing plan here. And whether we can do a mark-to-market type program, ask for a market rate increase by doing a market study on these areas. But I really think it's going to be contingent no matter what. No one's going to want to get involved unless we are fully leased.
Correct.
And that's going to be our number one issue here is leasing and collecting here. And because if we decide to get into a new financing or a new funding system here, that's going to be the first thing they look at. And I think that's going to be, probably our number one issue to make sure we take care of right off the bat.
Yeah. And we're already on their radar, I think, in that regard. And plus, those all come at at some type of cost too. So where does that money come from?
And that's kind of the issue, that with all of that, where are we going to get the financing, to go forward with that? And is it worth it from an investment standpoint to do this? And that's where you guys are from a strategic plan, is you're looking at this project and you've got to look at this and say, 5 years from now, where do we think this thing is going to be? Can it be helped? Is this project just a no-go? The way the units are built, the location, there's no way this is ever going to be profitable. We got to have that conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I just think it's good for the rest of the board to hear your
Sure.
kind of thoughts on those type of financing, because they're not. You can make the big investment, but there's no guarantees as well.
No, and that's what we got to worry about. And a lot of times when we're trying to get that investment, it's very difficult without being able to show that, hey, this project is able to afford and pay for itself. It's fully leased. There's a need. It's going to be fully leased for the next 10 years. That's what we got to be able to show.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate your time.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Ron.
If you need anything, give me a call.
Hey, have no fear. We know how to find you now.
All right. So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So I guess for the group, we'll next we'll go back in order, and we'll pop into executive session. And of course, for the record, no votes will be had, no decisions made, votes taken. Frank, it's 6:36 p.m. and I'm gonna work on a breakout room.
Do you have that, or do you want me? Or if you make me co-host, I can do that. If you don't,
Yeah, let's go. Where do I?
It should be at the bottom. You should see breakout room.
Oh no, I'm gonna do it even easier.
Oh. All right. You're gonna make me.
I don't need everybody to watch me embarrassingly try to create a breakout room. So.
Okay, so you have to make me host to do breakout room instead of co-host.
Make host.
Sorry. Okay. Here we go. So we're going to just have one, and we will send 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then I think Adrian, you just won't go into the breakout room, but everybody else should accept and go. So I'm creating it and opening. Let me pull and opening everybody.
All right, I'm
the breakout room.
Close all.
Yeah. There you go. That'll force them back in. We didn't get Brad back, but I heard somebody fall off. It sounded like.
Right. So, well, if Brad may jump back in. So
Yeah.
But for the sake of time,
I'm back. This is Brad.
All right. Let me see if I can pull up my little script. And all right, for the record, Frank, it's 7:40 p.m. and we're reconvening from executive session. No actions were taken or decisions made. I believe next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from April 16th and August 20th. I'll give my fellow commissioners a minute or two to review the minutes. And then we'll see if there's any edits and go from there.
I didn't have any corrections.
All right. How about that? So unless there's any corrections, do we have a motion to approve both the minutes for this from April and August?
This is Clara Rodriguez. I make the motion to approve the minutes of April 16, 2020 and August 20, 2020.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right. Commissioner Lopez seconds. And all right, it's approved. And then I think, Frank, at this point, we turn it over to you to discuss the occupancy reports and the capital fund project, I believe.
Okay. The occupancy report for Charles Young. Right now, we are at the time of the report was 90%. We have 3 vacant units on the ready list. They're ready to get occupied. However, anytime the gas is cut off by the tenant when they leave, and we try to bring it back on, the city has to do a gas check. The plumber needs to pull a permit to do the gas check. The city comes out and checks the pressure and okays it. We ran into a problem this time around. A new inspector came to our property and he approved the pressure, but he had a litany of things that he wanted fixed before he would sign the permit off. One was he wanted a carbon monoxide, I forget what the term is called. It's like a smoke alarm, except it's for monoxide detection. He wanted a bib on the exterior faucet on the outside. He wanted a ladder so he can get into the attic. He wanted the flute that comes off the water heater into the ceiling to be tightened, which is no problem. We got that done. And I asked to meet with him to go over this. Since I've been on the Housing Authority, all they did was check the pressure on the meter, and we were never informed about these new requirements that this inspector was demanding of us. I did talk to Mr. Hendricks. I had a meeting with him on another situation, and he said he had to defer to that department because he wasn't knowledgeable about it. And he had me talk to the director of planning, who is the interim director for the building inspector. The inspector had just retired on Halloween, the one that we always dealt with. And I was told that this was in the code book of whatever the inspector was requiring was in the code book, and that should be adhered to. And I said, this is the first time in 3 years that I've been with the Housing Authority that this was implemented. We got no advance notice. We didn't get any kind of indication that things had changed. And the planning director suggested I speak with the inspector. And he said that he couldn't pull him out of the field, that it would be on his time when he could talk to me. Well, when he did call, I was in the middle of something that I just couldn't break away at that time, and I suggested another time. And we just haven't met. I'm trying to get this worked out. Now, Centerpoint Gas, who does the gas, one of the technicians asked me, do you have a landlord account? I said, no. And he said, well, if it's a landlord account, then we won't cut the gas off. You just start paying for it. And so that's what I've done. I've started doing it in a couple of units that are becoming vacant. I'm turning them over. I have to pay a fee, but that's better than trying to go run through this gamblet that this one inspector is having us run through. So I have not filled those 3 units at Charles Young. I'm hoping that this month I can get everything rectified so we can get some people inside those units. On Pete Dresson, we have 4 units on the make-ready status. That means work that needs to get done. I've been doing it piecemeal with handyman and contracting with plumbers. 2 units are ready for occupancy. I'm going through the applications right now. I'm hoping by our next meeting we have those 2 units occupied. And I have 1 unit that has been used for storage for materials and tools. That's since I started the maintenance at that time, I utilized that room. And in talking to Mr. Kaufman, he suggested that I turn that into a non-rental unit just to get it off the books, and it wouldn't count against us. That's something that I need to do. I just haven't got around to doing it. And we're continuing to have maintenance issues with our HVAC, our air conditioning, and our heating. The units are old. And what I've had to do is rob parts from compressors, from the air handlers on unoccupied units and place them in the units that have been having the problem. And I recently had to buy a used compressor from our contractor, which was $2,300. And that's one of the bills I need to present to rural development to reimburse us. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, we have a new representative. We have had a representative from Georgetown, where our area manager works out of. And this new person, he's out of the Hillsborough office. His name is Jay Tyler. And I'm trying to arrange a meeting with him so I can get off on the right foot with him, and maybe I can begin doing as Mr. Prack suggested, that, you know, all we got to do is approve. It's our dedicated fund, it's the reserve fund that we have with in our account. And the other issue apart from this is I've been trying to reach the San Antonio office to get the funds that come into the operating fund at the Housing Authority, which is a rural development account. I'm trying to get the HUD funds to come directly to the HUD account. There's a gentleman there that I have to take care of it, and it seems every time, the 2 times I've called, he's out, and then he was on sick leave. And I'm having to juggle things around. I don't get to follow through as I should. I'd like to make an excuse, but I can't, because there's something happens every day. And with COVID, it seems like it's gotten worse. I will welcome any change, any suggestions that one of the 2 persons that you all have interviewed to lend a hand and maybe give me some direction on something that I'm missing, because I'm too close to the weeds. I have to pull my head out of the weeds to see what's going on. So basically, in a nutshell, that's my report on the occupancy in the units. If you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to try and answer them.
Well, none on my end, Frank. I appreciate it. Yeah, we've got to. You're going to be able to respond to Brenner tomorrow, right? With something. So
yes.
she.
Yeah, I'm going to give her a scenario, and I'll copy you on my response. I'll do it by email on the obstacles I'm running through, and I hope to get something done before the year end.
All right. Perfect. Well, I mean, unless there's anything else, I think we're at the end of our agenda, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Frank, it's 7:52, and unless I hear objection, I'm going to adjourn the meeting of the Kyle Housing Authority. So appreciate it, everybody. I know we've been trucking longer than normal, but I think we're making progress.
Amen. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.
Thanks for setting all this up. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.